So let's take a deeper look at glycolysis and its various steps. In glycolysis, a glucose molecule is converted into two pyruvate molecules. There are two different phases in glycolysis. The first phase involves taking a glucose molecule, 6-carbon molecule, breaking it down into two 3-carbon molecules that have an added phosphate to it. And during this process, the cell actually spins 2 ATP molecules. So this process is called the energy investment phase of glycolysis. So 2 ATP molecules are spent per glucose. So we're still running a deficit. Then each of these 3-carbon molecules, called glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, go through a series of steps of reactions in which they lose electrons and they lose these phosphates that are attached to them to turn ADP into ATP. So the second phase of glycolysis is when the cell actually is making ATP, and it's also stealing electrons to make these high energy NADH molecules. This phase of glycolysis is called the energy payoff phase, during which 4 ATP molecules per molecule of glucose is synthesized. It's really important that you note these numberings. So for one of these glyceride 3-phosphate molecules, there's 2 ATPs made. But from one glucose, you get 2 of these. So then altogether, as the result of glycolysis, 4 ATP molecules are made during the energy payoff phase. But remember that we spent in the energy investment phase. So therefore, the net ATP production as a result of glycolysis is 2 ATP. So therefore, during glycolysis, as a result of glycolysis, we get 2 net ATP molecules per glucose. So now, let's look at the reactants and products of the glycolysis pathway. And when I talk about reactants and products, I'm talking about the entire thing. And you're going to be probably getting questions about the products and reactants of these, each of the different stages of cellular respiration. So we're going to go through the reactants first. And in order for you to figure out what is reactant and a product, you ask yourself what is going in and what is coming out. So what is going into glycolysis? Well, glucose is, and NAD plus is going into the reaction, right? ADP is going into the reaction. So these are the reactants. Now, what are the products? What do we get out of this entire process? We get 2 NADH, and we get 2 net ATP as a product, and also we get 2 pyruvate. Okay, so for the glycolysis pathway, as an overall process, the reactants are glucose, NAD plus, and ADP. And then the products are NADH, ATP, and pyruvate. So now it's your turn. Draw the 2 phases of glycolysis. Indicate how many ATPs are used or produced at each phase. Indicate the reactants and products of the overall glycolysis pathway. Indicate the net number of each reactant and product of the glycolysis pathway.